So I hope all of you can see my screen here. So welcome to the CEG C-Level Connect series number 16. Today is Saturday, October 29th, 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time. So a few guidelines for those of you who might be joining this session for the first time. Please stay muted during the fireside chat session. We don't want any external disturbance. I'll be unmuting myself as well shortly when Guru starts talking. Also, please turn off your video. Video takes consumes a lot of bandwidth, so like request you all to turn off your video. The entire session is recorded, and the recording of this entire session will be available in our public YouTube channel shortly. So you can, those of you who are not able to listen to the whole session, can watch the video to catch up. During the session, if you have any questions for the speaker or myself, please use the Slido program. And in the Google Meet session on the chat box, I have put some information how to access Slido and how to enter into Slido. You can use that. It's a free tool available in any device. And I'll shortly show you a few slides on how to use Slido as well. And there will be periodic live polls in Slido, where as a host I can ask real-time questions to the participants, and so please participate in those polls. And during the question and answer session, if your name is called, please unmute yourself and ask your question. So today's guest speaker is Mr. K. Guruswamy MBE. MBE stands for member of the British. Help me, Guru. MBE stands for a member of the British.
Excellent Order of British Empire.
Excellent order, British Empire. It's a very
It's
prestigious.
something similar to Padma Awards in India.
Yeah, so it's a very prestigious award given by the UK government, the Queen herself, to very successful and very accomplished people. So Guru Swami is an MBE. I don't know if there's any MBE from CEG. He might be the first one, Guru, actually. And I'll be the host. And Partha, my friend, who's a 2021 CEG graduate, will be the tech support person. Here's a Slido screen. So all of you who want to participate in the polls and as well as to ask questions, you can go to slido.com in any device, laptop, desktop, mobile, etc. When you open Slido, you will get a screen where you can enter the Slido code for today, 1516897. Once you enter the code in the box, then you will get the screen where you have a Q&A tab and a polls tab. The Q&A tab is where you can put your questions that you want to ask to the speaker or the host, and the polls tab is where you will see questions. I have right now posted one poll asking where you are joining from. I would appreciate if all of you who are on the call can respond to that, saying which part of the world you are joining from, the city and country. This is just for our own sake to know how the participation is. Okay, so I'm going to now switch and stop sharing my screen and get started with Guru.
Thank you.
Okay, so Guru, what I would like to do, Guru, first of all, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining and giving your time. I know it is early morning in the UK, but or mid afternoon in the UK, which is good. So early morning in the US rather. So those of you joining from the US, thanks for joining on a Saturday morning. And Guru, welcome to the program. What I would like to do, Guru, in the first say 15 to 20 minutes, is walk us through your journey from the time you left CEG in 1992 to where you are now. What I would like you to do in that monologue is to focus on significant points in your career during that session when you had to make a change, and what were the learnings, what would we like to share in terms of advice, guidance, or things for the benefit of all the listeners, specifically the students and younger alumni. Okay, so once you finish your monologue, then we'll go to the Q&A session. So over to you, Guru.
Sure. Thanks, Vish. Thanks everyone for joining in this session. I must say to start with, I'm really honored and humbled to be on this platform. Just a part of the global CEG alumni. Uh, as Vish was saying a few minutes before when we both were chatting, the CEG alumni are in some great positions, doing some great job all over the world. So to be a part of such an alumni, powerful alumni, and to do something to be a part of a forum like this, I'm really honored. Thanks, Vish, once again for inviting me onto this. And the second thing is, I'm sure everybody would have said this. Wish, it's an amazing effort you and your colleague are putting up to conduct this month after month, as you are saying, the 16th one now. I know it's a thankless effort. It's not for any returns or benefits. um, I'm sure it takes a hell of a lot of effort from you. So thank you very much, and congratulations for doing this. And please, irrespective of whatever happens, please continue to do this. I mean, this, I'm sure, even if one person benefits out of this, I'm sure I'm going to benefit today from some of the conversations that we'll have. So it'll be a great thing. So please continue to do, and let us know. Let me know. People like us know if you need anything, any value that we could add into this, right? So that's on the pleasantry side. So quickly getting on to about myself, I'll just do a quick introduction about myself. Even though Vish wanted me to talk from the time I left CEG, I wouldn't do justice to this if I don't start a bit earlier than that. To set a context. So I'm going to start from where I came from. I come from a place called Karaikudi, which is just in the heart of Chettinad. I'm sure there are many people who would have heard about Chettinad. If not anything else, at least we would have been to Chettinad restaurant, Karaikudi restaurant, multiple times to have a food in various parts of the world. So I come from that part of the country, a beautiful, quite small town. I had all my schooling there in Karaikudi, from first standard to 12th standard, half of it in Tamil medium and the remaining half in English medium. So, never probably the time when I started doing a proper full-fledged conversation in English, it was only when I got into the college. Right? In schools, it's only scared of the teachers whenever they say that you have to speak in English once in a while, that do that. Otherwise, that is not the language in which I used to even think. So that's a background. Cycling to the school every day, and like most of us here, I'm sure would have gone through all those experiences. Not exposed to any major flamboyant lifestyle or extravaganza, any of that. A very, very middle class, typical conservative family background. And from there, zoom on to CEG. As soon as I finished 12th standard, when I did my 12th, unfortunately, we were only one batch, I think, which had an option to choose either engineering or medicine. We could not do both, right? That was the particular year where they segregated both. So you could either choose engineering or medicine. And my father was a professor of physics in engineering college. So obviously, there's more inclination towards engineering. And I had only two choices. Either go to Gindi or study in Karaikudi Engineering College. These are only two institutions I even applied. Didn't even apply for anything else. And made my way into CEG, at that point in time. So that was a big change, a big cultural shock, I should say, even though it is within the same state of Tamil Nadu. It's a big cultural shock to get exposed to a completely different culture, and students studying along, coming to the college along with me from various backgrounds, various levels of knowledge, and much bigger exposure from various cities. Of course, there are other students also like me who came from the rural background. Many of them, but there was a big change. A lot of things one had to learn. I had to learn completely from the scratch, getting into an environment like that. Gindi was the first big pivot in my life, if I should say, which made me learn more than engineering. I think the life skills, right? How to live in an environment like that, which had a significant impact in everything that I did subsequently, because most of my career was all around traveling all over, and meeting with people, etc. So it was a significant transformation. I think the first big pivot that happened to me was in Gindi. The ability to network with people, the ability to connect with students from different background, and the way you interact with people, the way you communicate, and for the first time, probably, even though I studied in a co-education school, that was the first time probably came across the typical real co-education, as you can define it, right? So overcoming a lot of inhibitions, plenty of things. The way the language was spoken, the content. How the city students typically speak, right? And the content of the conversation itself was very different for somebody who was coming from a small town like that. So a massive cultural change, very high profile classmates, and that was a big. It took a few months for sure, for me to even understand what was happening around me. For the first year, 1 year I was a day scholar, and then I moved on to the hostel. Moved into the hostel, which is again another big change, a huge transformation. So but within a few months, I probably started doing what I was good at, which is going out and reaching out to people and acquiring friends, connecting with people. That changed significantly, and I could see within, by the time I finished my second semester, I probably had a lot of friends, a lot more than many of my fellow students across branches. Even though I was in electronics, I'm very glad to say that I had friends across all branches. That was something which I had to really put in an effort. I think that's the first learning, that where I there are several students, several people who have done much better than me in this. There are several students who get completely sucked into a small shell, right? During this transformation phase. But the difference between the two is completely in our hands. It was in my hands, to go out, reach out to people, create that connectivity, create that network. And I think the power of networking that I learned there, it's something which I still carry. I mean, that's something which has helped me at various stages in my professional career. I keep talking about this power of networking in various forums whenever it comes, and I think that's one single most important thing for any leader in any walk of life, in any domain you are in. I think the power of networking is phenomenal, and that was one fundamental thing that I really learned in CEG. The different, completely different type of lifestyle. It did teach me a lot of life learnings, right? Adjusting to a totally different kind of living conditions. So that is to me more. Course engineering, yes. Studied engineering, learned engineering. When I was not a great student, obviously, when I was in the campus, I was okay. But I think more than engineering, to me, the biggest thing that I learned during the course was the life skills, and I think that helped in every stage of my career from day. Especially because when I went from the campus, CEG campus, I directly went into a job. I didn't even, due to a lot of personal reasons at that point in time, I didn't even think of going, taking GRE, TOEFL, or going to US for studies. I had to get into a job. So I got into a job, and the job was a marketing job, sales and marketing job. So you know what it takes, right? From a campus directly into a sales and marketing job. And that was probably, the 4 years really helped me to create that courage to go out and seek out a job in sales and marketing career, and did reasonably well, I must say. So that was big thing in CEG. When I from CEG I moved, I did have an opportunity recently to narrate, which is probably coming up as a part of a book very, very soon, from a senior leader, from a global leader from GE, who has written that book, created the collation. So I basically wrote a small part of that book. My journey into 4 parts. This first part, which I said so far, and I call it as formative stage, right? Of my life, and that did give me a lot of these lessons. CEG was a powerful part of my formative phase of my life, which then propelled me into the next phase, which I call as the evolution phase. Which is the 12 years of professional career that I had with a very large corporate. And when I say the name, you'll all know, GE, GE Medical Systems. I was a part of the medical systems business of GE. I worked across various functions at various different types of jobs at various leadership levels, and also the operating levels, multiple roles. You all know GE, right? And how big it is. The moment you say GE, everybody will remember Jack Welch, and his philosophy about professional careers and professional life. Control your destiny, or else someone else will, right? And the most profound statement that he made, which is absolutely true. And you can see each of that. You can feel each of that. You could feel each of that during your life in GE. So that has been that phase of me has been a big factor for me to evolve as develop and nurture my leadership skills. GE is a great university, and anybody who has worked in GE in any form of any business of GE, I'm sure would agree to what I'm saying. I'm not talking about GE today. Don't want to get into that. GE today is a very different animal from the GE that was 20 years ago. That was a great university, and many people who worked in GE in different businesses of GE, we are seeing them very successful. There are many people who are leading big corporations today, ex-GE alumni, fundamentally because that's a great university. You learn a lot in the while being a part of a company like GE. Fundamentally because GE is known for big ambitions, right? I mean, it sets big
ப்ரோ ஃபோனே
ambitions,
பண்ணலையே எனக்கு.
big growth, talks about very
எனக்குதா
big
அமைச்சா
initiatives,
போகுது.
a very
எலிமினேஷன்
kind
கார்டு
of
வந்து
innovative approach to the business, all of that. And the beauty in GE, and there are other
செல்லா
companies. I'm not saying
ப்ரோ
GE is the only
காசு
company.
தான்.
There are other companies like the large corporations. I'm talking about GE specifically because that's where I come from. The beauty in GE is these big initiatives, these big strategies, big ambitions, big the innovation in business model, etc.,
நம்ம
trickles
இங்க
down
போனாலும் பார்ட்டாலாம்
in
வருமா
GE
இருக்கும்.
very quickly to the senior and middle management level through what we call as the most structured operating mechanism. So that is one major thing that DGE teaches you: the
அது
power
மாதிரி
of
போச்சு
operating
வரட்டா.
mechanism. Whether you
புக்கு
are
ஏதாவது
you are an
இருக்குங்களா அது
employee,
போடுறதுக்கு?
or you are setting up a business for yourself, or you do anything, the importance of creating a proper operating mechanism, right? Operating mechanism is very, very important, and the G is very structured in that. So take for example an initiative like Six Sigma or a Lean, or a digitization. It doesn't just remain as a buzzword at some level. It doesn't stop at the top 20% level. It trickles down very, very quickly, up to the bottom 15% level, very, very quickly. Fundamentally because of the structure, the operating mechanism that the organization, the very powerful way of very powerful operating mechanism. That's the beauty, of that company. So lots of things, lots of learnings while being at in GE. 12 years I spent there, as I said, in various roles. For me, the big learnings in working like a corporation, a corporation like GE, is fundamentally the importance of the big thinking, right? That is you don't get it everywhere. You don't get that kind of culture, the big thinking culture. You think big and act small. That is a very powerful phrase used with inside G. And imagination at work. These are all very big. The creativity and big thinking. So the power of big thinking is amazing, and you must go through that to really understand the impact of that. And the next one is the importance of having a players around you. And companies like GE, and there are other companies also, focus a lot around that. You always keep looking at who's your top 20, who's your mid 70%, who's your bottom 10%. Treat with these people in a different way. Cultivate that habit of, at every level, the operating manager looks at how to identify your top 20%, mid 70%, and the bottom 10%, and then act accordingly. So that's a culture and that gets inculcated within yourself. And so you work with a lot of A players, and when you work with A players, I mean, you know what happens, right? The energy is contagious, right? The thinking process, the energy and the passion, these are all contagious. They're really contagious. So that is a big learning. So it's important to work with the A players, or it's important to create A players around you. You have to surround yourselves with A players. You should never be reluctant to work with or work under or work above somebody who's better than you, right? That was a very big learning, because it happens in GE. You would see, just by the sheer structure of GE, a person remains probably in a particular role for say 3 years, 3 to 4 years, right? And then he changes. If he or she is very good, they will change. They'll go to a good, maybe a better position, better role, and then you have a new manager coming in, or you have a new subordinate coming in. So you constantly keep working with people who keep challenging you. It's a very, very important thing. Whether you're an employee again, or whether you're creating an organization, you need to create people, A players, and you need to surround yourself with A players, and you need to have people that could potentially challenge you. If you protect yourself by not having such players, it's going to be a dumb place rather. So that's the next big learning. The third thing is the power of impactful leadership, right? I was fortunate enough to work with a lot of great leaders, with whom I'm still in touch with. Many of them are my mentors. the impactful leadership. I mean, just leave Jack Welch aside for a minute. Of course, he was a super impactful man. A lot of positives, negatives. People question many things, talk good about him, bad about him. I'll leave that aside for a minute. But it's just not at the Jack Welch level. At operating level, an organization like that had a huge, highly impactful leaders. And when you work under such leadership, you're always challenged. Your limits are always stretched, right? You're made to do, you get into a boundaryless kind of a concept, right, in a working environment. It's very, very important, the power of impactful leadership. If you continuously work with such leaders, you start developing those habits, you start learning those habits, right? What is leadership all about? And again, leadership is not an inborn trait, right? It evolves. You evolve into a leader. You pick up a few things and evolve into a leader. Each one of us is a leader in some way or other. It's just a question of identifying that particular talent and evolving that. So working with impactful leadership, and another important thing that I learned there is this global perspective. Right? Even though I worked in India for most of my GE, for all of my GE and most of my other career, the kind of global perspective, the global connect that you get is very, very important. It was very useful for me as I moved forward from an employment to entrepreneurial role, and then when I moved completely outside of India, which was never a planned initiative. It just happened, and it happened at some point in time in my life. The global perspective that you get was very, very, very important. So to me, thinking big, having A players and getting challenged constantly, at both at level above you and level below you, and the leadership, the powerful, passionate, and impactful leadership, and the global perspective that one gets from working like an organization, a corporation like that. The big eye openers and big takeaway for me from GE days, and I think it really helped me a lot in what I went ahead and subsequently into the next phase of my life, which I call as experimentation phase. Where sometime in 2005, I moved out of GE, and then we started a company from Chennai. Four of us, all GE colleagues, we all worked together. Myself and the CFO of GE Medical Systems in India, and another person was the director of engineering, and the fourth person who was heading manufacturing transfers from various poles of GE into India. Lot of manufacturing activity in medtech during those days got transferred into India. India became a very big global hub for GE Medical Systems during the time. I was fortunate enough to be there at that time. So four of us, we came out and started a company called Perfint, Perfint. I'm not sure how many of you heard, seen that. So basically, actually in 2004, I came out of GE, and I went into, for a very brief period, I went into TVS Group, with TVS Electronics, with Gopal Srinivasan, heading the commercial process quality and, setting up commercial processes, etc. But within 10 months, I became restless. And I said, okay, I didn't want to be too far away from the medtech space, and not enjoying that. So I wanted to quickly come back and get back to the space where, I thought I would be more comfortable. Around the same time, the three other senior colleagues, they had also moved out of GE and taken different jobs. One was a director in Accenture, another was COO in the BPO of Standard Chartered, forgot the names, Scope International, and the other one went into a different job. So all were doing very good jobs. We're all in very, very lucrative, very senior jobs, senior roles. We said we'll jump out, come out and start. We started Perfint in 2005 as an engineering services company to focus towards the medical device space. So at that point in time, the engineering services was booming. The automobile industry was picking up, the aerospace was picking up. India was becoming a kind of a hub for engineering services. You know what engineering services means, right? The design services and various life cycle engineering services. So we said, having worked in the medical device space for such a long time, we'll create a company to provide engineering services for medtech, medical devices space. We started off, ran it, put all our money the hard-earned money, everything we put into the company, and then we started it, ran it for a year. And then when we started looking out for funding, institutional funding, that's when, the VCs, I'm sure many of you would have gone through this exercise. When you start talking to the VCs and investors, they come with a recipe, right? And they think things have changed now a lot. I'm talking about 2006, 2007. Engineering services industry was not very lucrative at that point in time for them, from a valuation point of view, right? From an IR point of view. So, with a lot of after a lot of discussions, it was decided that we will switch towards a medical device products company, right? We'll become a products company. So in 2007, we first got funded by Axel Partners and IDG and few other VCs. So we created a product which was a very unique product at that point in time, a robotic system for cancer, early stage cancer diagnosis. Which uses it's an image guided. I wouldn't go too much into the details. The cancer disease, wherever it happens, lung or liver or kidney, wherever it is, it happens. Basically, you confirm whether it is a cancer or what type of cancer it is by doing a procedure called biopsy. Right? You take a small tissue sample and then find out what kind of which stage and what kind of cancer, etc. That was being done manually by the doctors. So we said we'll create a device, a robotic system that would significantly help the clinicians to do it much better. So we started that, and within a couple of years, again, we developed more products to get into treatment side of the cancer with using the same robotic navigation, adding more image processing, etc. into that. So we created a couple of ranges of products. We raised funds of multiple rounds. I think we raised up to Series D, Series C, with including Norwest Venture Partners came in. So everything went on very well, and the technology that we created was very unique at that point in time. There are not too many robotic companies globally. There are very few, but none in India for sure. But there are very few across globally that are creating these kind of robotic technologies. We were one among them. And we had global key opinion leaders in the medical fraternity who really appreciated what we did. We had multiple patents in US, in the PCR countries and all that. And we had all regulatory approvals in medical device. One of the key things is regulatory approval, FDAs and CE marks, etc. We had all of that. And we did receive lots of accolades, and Government of India's R&D Innovation Award. I was very fortunate to receive the award from Dr. Abdul Kalam at that point in time, and several global recognitions for the technology, etc. All of that was fantastic, and we got featured in the Forbes magazine, a lot of that. But of course, it was not all fairy tale, right? So the other side, our commercial side, did not scale up the way we thought. We had, that was again the first eye opener, right? You take some time, or you learn very quickly that many things that worked in a corporation like GE don't work in a startup environment, right? That starts from how you look at the business. In a GE, when you put up a business case, you say, look, this product is going to be probably used with a CT scanner. Okay, so globally there are 1 million CT scanners. 20% of these CT scanners would take this machine, and they will all start using this. So okay, we're going to start with 200,000 units straight away in the 3 years or 4 years. So that's how the business cases are built, right? So we applied the same formula when we came out to the startup, but we very soon realized that it doesn't work that way, for a startup. Biggest learning, it started from there, right? It's a great technology, but then the adoption was not good. We were probably 5 years earlier. Today, as we speak, I'm sure anybody who's in the medical device space would have noticed there's so many robotic companies. Surgeries are happening through robotics intervention now. You have large companies today which sell this Da Vinci robots and all that. So there are surgeries and operations happening in that, spinal cord procedures. A lot of things are happening today. And I'm talking about 2007, 2008, right? So 12 years. Huge things, a lot of things have changed. So the adoption, our problem at that point in time was we probably were 5 years ahead in curve. It was so difficult to go and tell a clinician that, look, you are already doing this procedure, but then here is a technology that's going to change your life. You're going to do it much better. Start using this. No, the first 50 is not difficult. The first 50 people would accept. So this is where, one of the key things the startups have to focus, technology, outstanding technology, out of the box technology, great, fantastic. But then who's going to use? Are they willing to use that? Is something which probably we missed. We overestimated that. We thought as soon as the technology is available, a lot of people will take, they will start adopting. That didn't happen. So scale up was very, very significantly slower than what we thought. We tried multiple things. Still once you miss the first 5 years, right? And then a lot of things have a knock-on effect on that. So while the technology side, what we did was outstanding, phenomenal. Everybody was happy. Our investors were happy. We were fortunate enough to have great investors who had fantastic. We had fantastic trust with them, and we were absolutely transparent with them at every stage and all of that. But then, since the commercial scale up did not happen the way we thought, we tried, and at some point in time in 2017 is when, as promoters, we took a decision that we would not all of us would sit inside the organization and probably stretch it further. So I moved out. I still continue to be a shareholder, but I moved out of the organization, and one other person is running it. Somebody else is doing part time. The organization still exists. It has not scaled up commercially to the extent we thought even today, but still, surviving kind of bootstrapping and running on its own. So I moved out in 2017. From there, lots of learnings. That was like the most powerful, profound learnings in my life I've had in that. I've seen the peak. I wish you need to stop me when you think I'm crossing time limit.
It's okay. You can continue. No problem. No problem. No
Right. So,
issues.
all right. Okay. Thanks, Vish. So, yeah, profound learnings I have seen personally, like my other founders also, but talking about me personally, I've seen the peak of my life in that. As I said, anything that could go well, getting featured in the Forbes magazine award, receiving awards from Dr. Abdul Kalam, fantastic valuations when we raised funds initially, and some of the top-notch investors at that point, all of that. And I've also seen the worst of worst in my life, right? When commercial scale-up did not happen, got into cash flow issues, all kinds of, we scaled up organization, hoping that the scale up would happen, the revenue scale up would happen. We had people working for us in the US, in Europe, in various parts of Asia. We had some of the top notch customers, users, the key opinion leaders, working with us as advisors, clinical advisors. I mean, they're the who's who in the industry of this interventional oncology space. Working with us, we had some big consultants working with us, lots of stuff. They all like the technology, genuinely like the technology. They all genuinely wanted this to become a success. But it all drains. And in medical device, anybody who knows about medical device, the regulatory path is very expensive. Getting an FDA, and that too being an Indian company, is not very easy, because you have the amount of clinical data that one needs to create to get an FDA approval. And Indian data, unfortunately, is still looked at as a suspect. So we had to go out to Singapore and Australia and US and put these machines in big institutions, spend money and create those clinical data. All of that we did, and it was a compact team of 60-70 people. But we personally did most of it as founders. So cash flow became a big issue, and we reached. I've also the other side of the life, which is not knowing where the next pie is going to come from the next day morning. Personally, also, as well as a company, I've seen that part, which is the lowest part in life. So this financially, while it was not lucrative, but I think the kind of what it gave me in life is an absolute fearlessness. Now I know for sure there's nothing can be worse than what I've gone through. There can be nothing that is worse than what I've gone through in that. So absolute fearlessness and the ability to take risks in life, and the decision taking and the bold decision taking ability, all of this, it was a phenomenal takeaway for me. Those 2005 to 2017, 12 years, the very, very strong foundation pillar for what I've done in the last 4 years as the CEO of this company. I'm turning a lot of things around, being seen as one of the most successful individual here, having come here, because when I came into this company was bleeding. Now it is in a different shape. Penlon is in a different shape. So that experience of 12 years, that fearlessness, that ability to take bold decisions, the courage, and is something which one has to go through to really appreciate what I'm saying. Financially, yes, it was not. It sucked everything that we had and more. And we've all I've seen the definition of poverty in life. Right, so I don't think many people around me even know, and my family, of course, took all of that along with me. And I keep saying this amazing journey that they have gone through with me. There have been times when I didn't even know what I will do for the next the Diwali that's going to come a week after. Right, so gone through that. So gone through all of that, came out of it with a lot of learnings, and went back to a corporate life, which again is a big pivot for me in my life. It's not very easy for people who have done this, who've gone through this, probably will appreciate it. It's not very easy to go back from an entrepreneurship to a corporate life. Many people have failed. I've seen personally. I did have that concern. Thankfully, fortunately for me, again, the networking that I spoke to, right at the beginning, I did not go do job hunting. I did have lots of connections, in the industry through my relationship, which I always maintained from day one. Even though I was going through a lot of personal struggle in the startup, I always had my relationship, networking intact. I mean, they always knew me and I knew them, and there was a level of trust and all that. I maintained that perfectly in place. So when I decided I'm going to look for a job, I just spoke to one of my network, was a very senior leader. I wouldn't name at this point in time, saying that, look, this is what it is, and I may probably come back to corporate life. And all that he said is, look, the day you decide, just don't talk to anybody, come back. No, there's a very senior role here with BPL Medical Technologies. I'm sure you would have heard this name called BPL. Anybody in my age group and above would know that we all have used BPL televisions, washing machines, refrigerators at various points in time in our life. So they have a medical device division, which was very small. Now it got invested by Goldman Sachs in 2015. Now it's a big business. It's a Goldman Sachs invested business. So I moved into BPL just with that, the power of networking again, and got into BPL as a director for strategic initiatives and setting up their international business, etc. Did that for a year, and Penlon was a company owned by BPL and Goldman Sachs, right? They acquired this company in 2014 in UK. As soon as Goldman Sachs invested in BPL, they also invested through BPL into Penlon, acquired this company. But the company was bleeding. Penlon is a great brand. Somebody in medical field will know that. 75 years old company, a great brand. But then the company was bleeding with significant loss of focus, etc. So I was asked to come here in 2018 for a period of 6 months to analyze if the company will survive or else shut down the company. Right. So I came here, spent the first 6 months, and I had a very different opinion that this brand was very different. It was, it had a lot of energy, and I was pretty confident that this could be revived. So I went back to the board and made a presentation that, if you do a few things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's a good chance this could revive. So, and then they said, why don't you go and do that as a CEO? So then that's how I came here. In 4 years now, significant transformation. We transformed from a negative, hugely loss-making to a profitable company. Now on the top of it, we had this opportunity to do the ventilator challenge program in UK in 2020 when Boris Johnson announced that the COVID is going to probably consume a lot of lives, and UK had only 8,000 ventilators, and the requirement was 30,000 ventilators at that point in time, based on the clinical analysis. They didn't use eventually all those ventilators because the disease pattern changed. But then at that point in time, they wanted to do that as an insurance, and they had only 12 weeks time to do that. So Boris called, the Rolls Royce and the Airbus of the world and said, "Can you make ventilators?" Again, that's when I jumped in and I wrote a mail to the decision maker saying that, why are you calling Rolls Royce and Airbus? Here are we, the medical device companies, and we should be first discussed to do to do whatever you want. And then they called us. We didn't even have a ventilator at that point in time. We were an anesthesia company. But then within 1 week, put a small team together, created a re-engineered ventilator from the anesthesia machine, created a prototype, submitted it, it got approved. And then in 12 weeks time, we made some 11,700 ventilators, which was a phenomenal success. We didn't manufacture all by ourselves. We are a small company. We are a $25 million company at that time. So we worked along with Ford, Airbus, McLaren, the Formula One companies, and aerospace companies. Created a consortium, deployed 4,000 people, 24/7, 12 weeks, manufactured 11,700 ventilators, supplied all of them. It was a historic project in UK, considered to be a most historic project. Lots of then the whole thing changed for Penlon. Not just financially, the company became big, but even the DNA, the culture changed. People's thinking process widened. All of that happened, and at the back end of that, Goldman Sachs thought there's an opportunity for them to exit. So worked with them, worked with the bankers, and then got an exit for Goldman Sachs last year. It was a very good exit, much better than what they thought. So new owners are in. The last 1 year, I've been working on integrating with them. So it's a very high chance that I'll move back to India probably and take up a bigger role, or exploring a few options now that could happen very soon. So that's so very, very clearly, as the last phase that I said is kind of my consolidation phase, right? There are a lot of learnings that I had in the startup, which I told you earlier, and in GE and in the formative phase. I could really see the impact of all of that in this phase. And, when I had an opportunity to leverage them, I think most of them worked very well. Of course, there are some failures, not that everything was honky-dory, but there were some issues. But I think significantly most of them worked out. So that's I know I've taken a much longer time than what Vish said. That's a problem.
No, it's okay. I think it's important. A lot of what most of our speakers do that because that story itself gives you a lot of answers to questions people might have. But there are questions that are there in the line. But before I go to the audience question, one thing I want to start off, Guru, is the medtech industry is something new to a lot of people. I think it's not very well known industry. Maybe you can just share like a few minutes of what exactly is medtech industry and what is the future of the industry, so people can appreciate the role of Penlon and medtech in general.
Yes. So, yeah, med tech. And when I say med tech, I'm talking about these medical devices, which you all have seen in various places, like the boxes, starting from a small ECG machine all the way up to an MRI scanner or a radiotherapy equipment that is used for a cancer treatment, and robotic surgery devices. It has variety of all those equipments, medical devices. Traditionally, that is how it used to be. It's roughly around $500 billion market globally, right? I mean, as the size of the market. And to give you a perspective of where India is around $10 billion market today, right? And the global population is around, say, 7.8 billion. Indian population is around 1.4 billion. China is around 1.4 billion. China's medtech market is around, I think, roughly around 5 times India's market, 50 to 60 billion, right? So India and China are almost same as population, whereas China's market is today 5 to 6 times more than India's market. And US is around 450 million population, and that contributes roughly around 20 to 25% of the global market. So this is kind of unequally skewed market right now. Because the reason I'm saying this is the healthcare market has got a very direct relationship with the population, people. Right, end of the day, people. Every single person can potentially be a consumer for a healthcare service, which is going to use one of these technology devices. Right. So ideally, it should be directly proportionate to the market size. Should be directly proportionate to the population.
Right.
There are 2 3 reasons why it's not happening. One is the government spend. If you look at the government spend as a percentage of total GDP, I think US is around 8 times India, China is around 4 times India, and Europe is around 5 times India. So government of India is roughly around 2% of GDP, I think, is the healthcare spend, whereas Europe is around 10 to 11%, and US is currently at around 18%. So that's one key contributor significantly, because the number of people that get access to the public health directly depends on the government spend. Government spend. So what happens in India is largely it's private care, right? People out of pocket expenses and private care. That's why the market probably is not picked up. Now, of course, with the Ayushman Bharat kind of initiative coming in, the insurance coming in. So there's a whole expectation in India. So just quickly coming back to the device, there are a lot of technology in this. The biggest the entry barrier potentially in a medtech space is the medical devices have to go through a very, very strict and stringent regulatory approval process, which a device has to be a CE Mark 1 or an FDA approved if you want to sell in the US. Various markets have various regulatory expectations. India was not regulated so far. That was one, plus and minus. In fact, a minus, I should say. But now I think they're looking at very seriously regulating. Most other countries are regulated. So regulatory path is a very big entry barrier in this space. If anybody is looking at a healthcare medical device space for an entrepreneurship venture, you need to clearly understand what is the regulatory path ahead. And in terms of technology, you have heard about the CT scanners and MRIs, and I'm sure if you walk along in any street today, especially in India, you will see 3D scans, 4D scans, 5D scans, the 64 slice CT scanners going all the way up to 700 plus slice CT scanners. On the other side, automated laboratory machines, semi-automated laboratory machines. So this is how the technology evolution was happening. I think going forward, what's happening now, this COVID has been a significant contributor to a big shift, a big transformation in the healthcare market. A lot of what we call as the care pathway. The care pathway is the path it takes for the delivery to happen. It starts from a device being made all the way up to the service being delivered to a patient. There are lots of new things are happening. One profound thing that's happening today is the usage of data, because the treatments are becoming more patient centric now. Post COVID, it's becoming more and more patient centric and digital. People want to do remotely. People want to do teleconsultations, telediagnosis, teletreatment, home care. A lot of these things are picking up now. Very, very unconventional, considered to be unconventional a few years back, was all picking up now. What this means is, I think these augur very well for India, because anything like what I said now, which is home-based care, or a digital health care, or a data-based patient-specific customized treatment protocol, etc., needs a lot of data, patient data, right? You need to say, for example, if you want to treat a patient who's diagnosed with diabetes, for example, in a very, very focused, specific, customized manner, you need to have the patient's blood profiled and sampled in a periodic manner, and then you need to see the trends of it, and then treat accordingly, and devise and decide what kind of drug works for this patient, what does not work, what are the other comorbidities the patient has, and structure and create a patient treatment protocol for that patient. And that is the extent to which the patient specific treatment is probably getting into. All that means a hell of a lot of data, lots of data. And that's actually the organic strength of India, right? Yeah. The box making, which is manufacturing of the CT scanners, MRIs, the ultrasound scanners, or the ventilators, etc. These are all been traditionally happening. US, Europe, and Japan, they're all good at that. They've mastered this art. Now the shift from box making to solutions, the healthcare is moving towards solutions, patient-centric solutions. That shift means a lot to countries like India, because that's where our strength is. Our organic strength is around that. Our organic strength is around the digital. Our organic strength is around data mining, artificial intelligence, right? All those. So it's shifting towards that. It's early days. A lot of things are happening. A lot of efforts are happening. As I said, the regulatory path is one clear entry barrier for many of these things, but not to say that these will not happen. Because very clearly the trend is set, and the COVID has, if COVID has done anything good, that is acceleration of this technology adoption. There are many people today who don't want to go and see the physicians. They want to sit at home. They're more comfortable sitting at home. They're doing a consultation over a Zoom or a WhatsApp. There are many people who are comfortable, getting a blood sampled at home, or an ECG patch attached to them on the body, on their chest. It sends data through the cloud to a physician sitting somewhere else for a diagnosis, right? So these trends are picking up now. And home-based, home care, wearables. I'm sure most of us here, and I can see Vish wearing a watch, which I'm sure is tracking his heart rate, pulse rate, and so many other rates probably.
Yes, lot of it, unfortunately, yes.
Yes, I can see that on your wrist. So this is the trend. Many people are doing it now, and that's going to become the trend. Wearables, point of care diagnosis, home care diagnosis. All of this means big things to India. Good for India, and with government also now jumping in and doing all this, the PLIs, and I guess Make in India, etc. Going to be a lot. So India is expected. Every country is expecting India to be a center of activity for healthcare going forward, and I think it's a lot of exciting time in India.
Super. So there are a bunch of questions lined up in the Slido queue. So I'm going to start going one by one to ask people to ask the questions. So let's start with Avin Shanbag. Avin, can you unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, super. Thanks a lot for your talk, Guru. It's quite inspiring, especially with your profile. I was just wondering, since I worked for Philips a few years back, and I also wanted to understand amongst the competition between GE, Philips, and Siemens, how did you share Perfint found this product market fit, and you also gained the required seed funding to create a minimum valuable proposition to your customers?
You're asking about our startup, isn't it? How did we?
Yes, yes,
Right. So
Perfint, if I'm correct.
yeah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
What the idea that we came up with, which is basically interventional radiology or an interventional oncology, was not something which Philips or a GE or a Siemens was focusing on. Right? Philips, GE, Siemens were very good in imaging. They make the CT scanners, they make the ultrasound scanners, they make the MRI scanners, cath labs, and those kind of imaging and image-assisted interventions devices. They are in a different space. What we wanted to look at, which is using those CT images, and helping a clinician to do a biopsy, a lung biopsy, and a lung biopsy, not when the lesion is 5 centimeters, when the lesion is say 1.5 centimeter or sub centimeter, when it is less than a centimeter. Because in cancer, earlier you detect, the chances that you could treat probably is more, right? So, that needs a very precise intervention. So biopsy is a procedure where you put a needle inside across the skin, and then go to the lesion, pick up the small portion of the lesion, send it to the laboratory, and they give you a result saying that what kind of cancer, is it a cancer or not, what kind of cancer and what stage, etc. So that's not something which GE or a Siemens or a Philips was doing. So we hoped that this would complement some of what GE and Philips and Siemens do, because they do CT scanners, they make CT scanners, and this could be a complementing device with a CT scanner was one of the assumptions that we made. Necessarily, not necessarily, right? Because one thing very important for a startup, at least the kind of startup that I'm talking about, is when you startups can focus in creating technologies, but I think if you want to really scale up revenue, if you want to take it to the market, that's not something which probably startups should look at, unless it's a non-linear way of taking it to the market, like through e-commerce, etc. If you're going to do a conventional distribution into the market, I don't think startups can ever afford to take a product like this into the global market. So ideal is to align with one of the complementing entities like a GE or a Philips or a Siemens, which we assumed when we started that it could be a good value proposition for a GE or a Siemens or a Philips to go with, but that did not. There were several reasons why they did not think so the way we thought. So to answer your question, when we narrowed down on this concept, we knew pretty well that nobody was doing that. This is not the space they would look at.
Right. Right. Yes.
Super.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. Thanks, Avin, and thanks. So next question is from someone anonymous. So whoever asked the question, can you please unmute and ask the question? Talking about transition from corporate to entrepreneurship. So let me ask the question since the person is not answering. So the question, Guru, is that transition from corporate to entrepreneurship and back must not be easy. What advice can you give for someone who is considering such moves in their career?
No, it's very easy to advise. Okay, it is not easy, sure. I would refrain from advising. It is not easy for sure, and especially see the first one is probably easy because when you're coming from a corporate to an entrepreneurship, you have all the confidence that you've gained as a corporate, right? You must have worked in a company for a few years. You must have first of all earned a lot of money. You would have earned some confidence. You would have seen the market, and you must be thinking at this point in time that look, I know this market very well. I know this product. I know this market. I know what I want to do. Why wouldn't I do it myself? So you're at least starting off with a confidence, right? That's the biggest asset that you can start off with. The remaining assets are different. So moving from a corporate to an entrepreneurship is probably an easier decision if you have that passion, if you have a very clear confidence and passion in your idea. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
going back from entrepreneurship and corporate is a very very dicey thing. It could always go. I'm not sure how many of you. I'm sure some of you would have done that or tried that, because in an entrepreneurship you've worked with so much of free hand. You've done whatever you wanted. You've tried. You've failed. You've succeeded, and you have a typical way of working. You have your own philosophies. You have your own vision. All of that. So when you go back to a corporate, you have to tuck all of them in and then align with something else. You're going to align with what someone else says as the strategy. You're going to align with what someone else says as a vision, or someone else says as the way to work, etc. So that's a very big transition for me. I'm extremely fortunate. I was extremely fortunate to have the transition, not just going smooth, but I think it worked very well for me. I think that was a significant pivot for me. So I have no advice for this reverse transition. And for the onward transition from corporateship to entrepreneurship, you have an idea, you're passionate about it, you're confident, and you can mobilize required resources through your networking, etc. Just jump into that.
Okay, thank you so much. The next question is from Kumar Ratnam Arjunan. Can you please unmute and ask your question?
Hi. Yeah. Thank you for the great session, Guru. So, you actually mentioned that. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
So you mentioned that you did not anticipate that the commercial success for Perfect wouldn't be that great. Um, so, I mean, what would you have done differently to assess commercial success? I know it's a hard thing to do, but there could be something that you felt that you could have done earlier. And in general, what should startups do at the initial phase? to sort of get a proxy in terms of commercial success?
Yeah. See, well, it's very easy to reflect back always, right? What you, I know at least what we should not do. Right? You cannot apply the transfer function of input to output that is applicable for a corporate entity, right? In a corporate company, if GE does this business, for example, the way they would have gone about doing that is, okay, this is a device that's going to go work with a CT scanner. So how many CT scanners are there in the world? X million. And how many of them are GE machines? How many of them I can convert? GE can convert, to make the users use this device, and then they apply this formula. That doesn't work when you're an independent startup. So the first thing is, I don't think those transfer those input output relationship equations you should use when you're a startup. You really have to make an estimate clearly, thinking that you are going to be up against several odds as you're doing it as a startup. The ones which could be the most complementing entities could also probably are not going to add to your equation, or probably they're going to be only going to be retarding that. So that's first assumption I would make. And I wouldn't have made an estimate wherein I say, I'll become $100 million company in 5 years time. Probably I would have said, look, these are all odds against this. Probably we'd operate between 10 to 20 million in the first 5 years time. And that's the recalculate and reset your revenue estimates based on the reality that you are a standalone stand-up, number one. And number two, what is the best way to see this market? What is the best way to assess this market? You will have to use the standard methodologies, right? You will have to use all your primary data, secondary data, whichever is the connecting factors to make an assessment of the market. But then market is one thing. What you can do is different. See, market is not going to change. I'm sure still the market for a robotics device like this could be a few $1 billion. But can we do that as a startup? Or what can we do? Is the reality? It's a very brutal reality, but you should ask that question. How much of this market can I penetrate into? And how much of it I should even think of penetrating into as a startup? As I said earlier, my experience, if I rewind back, probably as soon as the product was ready, as soon as we had done the first 15, 20 units, we should have probably gone and given it to some larger company and say that, look, you now take it to the market, because you might have a bigger bandwidth instead of a startup. What we tried was, we as Perfect, the brand, we went to globally. We took this product globally to the market. We were in the European market. We were in the US. We were in China. We were in Southeast Asia, India, everywhere as Perfect. Probably, this would have, if this had gone through a different brand, as a different branded product, could have scaled up. So startup, I think, in my opinion, should not probably think of ramping up to maximize the reach in the market. The market size could be bigger. That's the most important thing you need to assess before you jump into this. Your market size should be bigger. But then, do you want to do it all by yourself? How much you can penetrate, and where you want to call it a quit, and then say, look, it's going to be taken to the market in a different form. That transition is something which you need to be clear about. Did that make sense? Did I address your question, Arjun?
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Arjun. Thanks, Guru. So the next question is coming from Kumar Guru. I believe he is in California, right, Kumar?
Yes, we met.
Please go ahead.
So my question, I think it's a question follow-up answer for a company perspective, but I'm thinking in terms of an individual. So sometimes you want to improve yourself, your own skills. Sometimes you are having certain skills that is very good for the company at that situation. So that's the path you can take. So how would you navigate this sort of situation where you put yourself first as an individual, or would you always consider a company when you are, progressing in career?
No, I think, if you ask me how I did that, I personally kept always company at the front, right? And I continue to do that even in the even during the startup phase, because there is there is an element of being a part of larger entity, which makes a big difference. So if you start putting yourself as a friend and you say, look, I have this skill set, I want to somehow go ahead and do this, I can do this, I'm going to now take this product to various markets, and I'm going to deploy this particular technology irrespective of whatever happens, because I have the capability to do that. You're starting with a disadvantage of bias. right? I mean, it's a self bias, right? You're starting with a self disadvantage of a self bias into that. So if you put the organization and what as an organization you want to do and what the market, I think ideal is to start from the market. What exactly is the market looking at? And hence, which skill sets of which are the skill sets that you have, the capabilities that you have, and which are the capabilities and skill set as an organization that you want to leverage, then the answers would be very different. If you start putting yourself in the front and your capabilities, your skills, what you can do and what you can't do as a starting point to make any assessment, you're starting with a huge self bias that may or may not work. I think invariably it doesn't work unless it's a very very individual driven solution and individual driven technology, which is very rare. I haven't seen an example like that. Does that give the answer that you are looking for?
Yeah, it's a hard reality, right? So it's not able to
Yes.
accept that because you want to put yourself back for others, and when sometimes it doesn't pay off, you feel bad about it. So
You need to have two hats, right? If you're a technologist, I don't know what your skill sets are. If you're a technologist, or if you're a businessman, if you're a marketer or a businessman, or if you're a finance person, you have to have those two hats, right? You as a finance person, you have certain capabilities, and hence you will contribute. You will leverage your strengths to contribute to the organization. But then you're not going to get constrained only by that. You're not going to say that, look, my capabilities equal to the organization's capabilities. Rather, you would do the other way, right? You create a huge organizational capability and then say I'm a part of this organizational capability. You have to wear these two hats. It is difficult, and it's very, as I said, it's very easy to say, but that's how I have seen. And I think if you start putting yourself in the front, uh, many times it doesn't work.
So
thank you.
thanks. So next question is from Babu. I think Babu is your classmate, Guru.
Oh
Babu,
yes.
please, can you please ask
Oh
your
hi.
question?
Hello,
Babu,
Babu.
Babu, can you ask your question? So let me ask the question he has put there. How do you feel when your company was recognized from the UK government? What was your thought when Rishi Sunak lost the election? Why he won the election?
I
Not my question, his question. So
I will keep the political side aside for a minute. But yeah, how did I feel when the company got recognized? It was a huge. I mean, very difficult to describe that because I knew I was putting my neck on the block, and I said, I remember those dates and times, exact times. When on a Sunday evening Boris Johnson announced, and then we had only 24 hours time to respond. Everything was happening, every hour. So we had to put ourselves up. I took a decision first, and I'm thank the board. Everybody backed me for that. The employees backed me hugely. We took a decision that we are going to get into this project. It could have gone either way. It could have gone anywhere, rather. It could have gone in any way, and I knew I was putting my neck on the block. Right? But thankfully, it worked. I mean, at times, if it had not worked, it had not. I mean, we took a big bold step, and it didn't work. And probably we would have gained something else. I wouldn't have gained financially, but we would have gained enough. We would have made some effort and gained some experience. And I would just walk with that. More happy to walk with that. But yes, but when it went well and when we got recognized as a company, it put a company in a very different pedestal. More than the external recognition, I think people in the company felt extremely good. The mindset of the people changed. The thinking changed. Anything is possible, and that approach came within the organization, and there was a significant cultural transformation, significant shift in the DNA of the company. A whole lot of things I could visibly see that was happening in front of my eyes. So that gave a whole lot of satisfaction to me personally. Rishi Sunak, wish him good luck. He's up with all odds.
yeah,
And hopefully comes out well in this.
yeah. So talking about medical devices, Guru, I want to mention to you during the COVID phase, we had an NGO in India. We are running some programs to help supply medical devices to a lot of these people who are in need. We did extensive research and we actually concluded that VPL was the best device for us. We bought tons of oximeters and
Wow, thanks.
things from VPL. It was India, made in India. It was good quality. It was well priced, etc. And what I also want to add is that the contribution I got, we got more than 3 crores worth of funding from people, and I had to say very proudly, a big portion came from CEG alumni.
Wow,
Many
very
different
nice.
batches of CEG reached out to me and said they would like to contribute to doing this thing, and so you were able to get a lot of money from a lot of CEG uh, batches to do that, and we ended up with BPL being our preferred supplier for all the devices. Actually, I just thought I'll
Oh,
mention
very
that.
nice. Sunil Kurana is the CEO, and a very nice man, very nice human being.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
should
I
mention.
think BPL for me is like how Penlon was a few years back. A great brand. It's a brand that resonates at every home. Used to resonate at every home. I
Yeah,
think it can do a lot more than what it is doing today.
yeah.
Let's see, fingers crossed.
So next question is going from Kumaru Guru. Kumaru Guru, you want to ask the next question?
No, I just had to break it up because it couldn't fit.
Okay, sure, no problem. Then the next question is from somebody again anonymous, talking about ups and downs in business. Whoever asked the question, can you please unmute and ask the question yourself? So let me read the question, Guru. It says, all of us would have had ups and downs in business. What did you learn from your exit from the medtech startup? What could you have done to revive your startup?
I'll go from the last part of the question, which is what could I do to revive the startup? The startup is still existing, as I said. I continue to be a shareholder. I only exited in an executive role. As a shareholder, whatever I need to do, I continue to do, and with all the disclosure to my existing companies and to the board, I continue to do that. What could be all of us could have done to revive, not revive. I know in the first place, I shared that a few minutes back, right? We would have we should have probably scaled up some of the expectations and probably remind as a technology company and left the revenue part to somebody else who could have ramped up the revenue in a much better manner. We should have probably, like any US company does, typically in the US, even at the pre-market state, before a product goes to the market, company would have raised up 100 million, close to $100 million. Right? India is very frugal that way. Right? I don't know whether to call this frugal or foolish, or situation driven. It's so difficult to raise funds in India, and especially if you are an Indian startup and if you say you're a technology company out of India. I'm not talking about today's technology. Technology in today's context is very different. I'm talking about the core technology. If you're a core technology company in India, it's very difficult to raise funds. So probably we would have exited much earlier as promoters, and at least some of us would have made money. But again, I have no hard feelings. I don't feel bad at all for being a part of that for 12 years, for doing everything, because that is the fundamental, the ups and downs that you mentioned. As I said, I've seen the peak of the peak, and the worst of the worst in this. Gave me one major learning. As I mentioned, the courage, the fearlessness, the courage, the risk appetite, whatever you call that, is significantly enhanced, and that is helping me a lot as I speak to you all today. It's helped me. I've seen real life example, and I'm sure it will continue to help me. So I have no regrets whatsoever in going through that, except for the financial part. And I'm sure, all of us gain, lose somewhere. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. The next question is from Guru Kalyan. Guru Kalyan, can you please unmute and ask your question? You have two questions actually, so you can ask both the questions.
Hi, everybody. So my first question was actually asked by Mr. Kumar Ratnam. So I'm gonna go for the second one. Mr. Guruswamy, is there something you would like to pursue or get involved in outside of your career in medical devices going forward?
Oh yes, I definitely want to, because as I said, as I am probably in the verge of some transition over the next few months now, I would like to get involved in more. I'm already got started with that. I'm beginning to mentor a few startups back in India through a thing called Derby Foundation, which runs out of Bangalore. They incubate a lot of startups. So I've gotten as mentor for one of the women tech. They run a specific program called Women Tech Acceleration Program. There are around 14 or 15 initiatives, projects funded by Karnataka government. I am one of the mentors for that, and I'm also trying to see if there are other areas, because not to say that I've done the best. I believe personally that I've got a mix of very unique experience, a journey that I've gone through. As I said, a corporate entrepreneurship, highs and lows in entrepreneurship, back to corporate, some major historic initiatives, etc. So I think there's some interesting learnings that I've had during this entire journey, and I'm very keen to pass it on wherever it is, whatever worth it is. I'm I'm sure there are more bigger learnings, better learnings people have gone through. There are a lot more experienced people, even around this call, I can see now. But I'm very curious to share, whatever learnings that I've had in my journey. Yes, I will start looking out for opportunities to do that.
Couple of ideas I can give you, Guru. One is, as you know, I don't know if you're aware, there is a incubator, a central Indian government funded incubator in campus now called the Atal Anna University Incubation Center. This is
Okay.
funded by the central government and run by the university, and we have a full-time CEO and staff there running it. We have about 35 incubatees who are being currently incubated in that center.
Okay.
The CEO of the Atal AIC Incubation Center, Miss Dr. Uma Maheshwari, is always looking for good mentors. I don't think we have very many good healthcare related business mentors. So I would
I'll
reach
be
out
very
to.
happy.
I'll send you the link, connect you to Uma, and you can talk to her, and you can certainly be a great help in mentoring people there.
Sure.
Doing that. The second thing I would say that looking at what you want to do after this career, I would definitely encourage social work. That's what I did 2 years ago and completely switched to 100% social work. And I can tell you, it's never been any better. It is fabulous, and there are many, many, many things you can do. Whether it is supporting entrepreneurs, supporting people to eliminate poverty, or supporting people to get education, there are thousands and thousands of great ideas and great avenues to contribute. So I would certainly think I would advise all of you actually to seriously consider at some point in your career to go do social work, because that's the most satisfying I have had ever in my more than 35 years career actually.
Oh, sure, right. I mean, there's no good time for all these things, Vishash. As you know, right? Any time is a good time. I, I don't think I'm going to quit professional life so early. I'm 51 now, so I believe I still have several years of active professional life ahead of me, and I will continue to do that, pursue that. But that shouldn't stop me from doing anything else, and I'm very keen. I will connect with you, and I'm sure if there is anything that appropriate. As I said, even in this derby, there are a couple of social entrepreneurship ventures, and I saw some very interesting
Super.
projects. Somebody trying to do sanitary napkins out of five banana fibers and neem fibers, etc. Things like that. So very interesting, and they're struggling. The people have some idea, but they're struggling to see the next step. So yeah, absolutely
Okay,
yes.
super. The next question, couple of questions more left. The next one is also anonymous. Can somebody ask the question? Whoever asked the question, can you please unmute and ask the question?
My name is Andy Giri.
Okay.
It was very inspiring today, particularly about your introduction to MedTech. By the way, we have Remedium Bio, which does osteoarthritis treatment. I invested in it just a couple of months back. And our
Okay.
friend Vish is very involved in the Gindi Alumni Angel Network. So that's an important thing to highlight, Vish, right after this. My question is, actually, I know Nanda Kumar. Nanda Kumar was a classmate of my wife in Penlon
Oh, okay.
partner, right?
Nandu is a partner. Yes.
I
Nandu.
do Salesforce consulting, and I was asked to give a quote for a bunch of licenses to be used by a company about 7 8 years back. So
Okay.
interesting. But anyway, you worked for a very large corporate which did medtech, and you said you created a plug and play, or your intent was to create a plug and play device that enhances CT scan. Why didn't you look back into aligning with them versus standing it alone, even though it's a good idea? For example, I know Jogo Health, which is a company which does digital therapeutics to cure, to mitigate diseases like chronic pelvic pain, things like that. That's new, right? It's happening today, right? So the environment and the technology is different. The acceptance is higher. So while in your case, why wouldn't you go and use your connects to get into GE or get into aligning with GE?
Yes, we did make some effort, but maybe we should have made it a different level. So we tried doing that. See, our intent was to go to the market as Perfin, right? So we wanted to work with GE as Perfin. GE's CT scanners and Perfin's robotic systems would probably be packaged, and that was the way. And we were directly accessing to the customers. Our sales team. We had created a sales team, a small but global sales team, who were reaching out to the customers, who were creating demand. So we were doing that parallel activity, right? Creating the demand, then converging or working with companies like GE, Philips, for that matter, with Siemens, all of them who sold CT scanners as a vendor. That is the level at which we were probably looking at that point in time. We thought we would be able to scale up that way. We should be able to create a demand ourselves as Perfin. Yeah, now if I go back, probably, I'm not sure if GE would have been interested, but looking at how things are happening today, creating a little more strategic relationship with a company like a GE or a Philips, working very closely with them, probably customizing the solution towards them, etc. If that would have basically meant that we committed ourselves to one direction, right? Which we thought, I don't know whether they call it as arrogance or if call it as ignorance, what, but we said no, we will not probably commit ourselves to one direction. And there were offers, and I at that point in time, a few other companies who came and said like, look, you have a technology solution, but why don't you customize it only for us? We will work together. We said no, this is a $1 billion market. Probably we'll be able to do $100 million ourselves, right? Yeah, I mean, those are all good and bad things. That's why I said thinking big is very good, but if you start thinking big too much beyond your head, at times it explodes. So yeah, to answer your question, Andy, we made some effort, but if I do it now, probably I think we'll do it slightly different. We'll do it more strategically. That's how most companies got acquired. And I forgot to tell you, as I told you, when we started in 2007, along with us, few more companies started in robotics, right? Globally, they all have got acquired by J&J, Medtronics, Strikers, and not in the simple valuation, nominal valuation. All of them, all our cohorts at that point in time have got acquired, right?
Yeah.
We have two reasons. One is we unfortunately did that out of India, even though we had a US subsidiary, but we created this out of India. They all started in the US. So in the US, the dynamics are very different. Right? The M&A happens very quick, fundraising happens very easily, and all of that. Whereas in India, it's not. So several things probably we would do differently. Yes.
Okay. By the way, if you want to do
Thanks.
charity, contribute to Viswajayam Foundation that our friend Vish is running. Don't do it yourself. Go to instead of going to Warren Buffett, go to Vishwanathan.
No, I don't do wrong with it, by the way. I don't
And
think.
but
Thanks.
startup mentorship, that's much more leverage, right? You
Yeah.
should become a startup mentor in
Thanks
MedTech
for that.
and
Yeah,
serve
sure,
the
sure.
community.
I haven't even met Vish, and we said we will meet. We would meet last time, but my trip was very short at that time. So this time I am probably, let's see.
We
It
will.
would be
So a
completely.
couple of things I want to mention. Andy mentioned about Gindi Angels, and I don't know, people may not know about Gindi Angels. Gindi Angels is actually angel investment group based in the US, made up of CEG alumni. And it's been 3 years we have been in operation, and we have invested in more than 20 companies, both in the US as well as elsewhere in the world. It's an angel group and only made up of CEG alumni angels. And incidentally, we are creating a CEG alumni angels, Gindi Angels chapter in India very soon. It's going to be launched in the next couple of weeks. So I have created a company here, a Section 8 private limited company, which is going to be doing this for alumni who are not having access to US dollar funds, but who still want to be angel investors. This India Alumni Angels in India will enable you as a CEG alumni to invest in startups in India or elsewhere using your Indian rupee funds. And just watch this space for the next few weeks, and we'll make an announcement about the opening and inauguration of the India Alumni Angels. And
Do you have
so
any specific sector orientation or sector agnostic?
we are agnostic. Both Gindi Alumni Angels in the US and the one which starting in India are largely sector agnostic. Having said that, I have to say we end up investing largely in tech companies, uh, deep
Tech,
tech,
tech
tech,
in the current sense, or
tech,
tech?
tech companies like in deep tech or AI or anything related to technology.
E-commerce technology.
Yeah, there are a few we have done which is outside of a technology space, so to speak, in B2C and B2B models, but larger most of them are in tech space because all of us are technologists and we think we understand that better than anything else. So anyway, that's one thing, and then the second thing is Andy also recently had his new office inaugurated yesterday. Unfortunately, I couldn't come to his office. The ministry from the Tamil Nadu government was the chief guest in inaugurating the new office for their company in Navalur, Chennai yesterday.
Which company is that you said, Andy?
Salesforce, we do company's name is Soft Square. We do Salesforce consulting in a global.
Salesforce implementation, is it? Okay.
So Navalur, they opened a new office, and Andy is also 1986 batch. He's also a member of Gindi Alumni Angels, invests in angel investments, and does a lot of work with mentoring students as well. So definitely someone I would like people to be like him as well. So the one last question in the line is an interesting question, Guru. Somebody asked a question. Whoever asked a question, can you ask about this Dean of CEG question? Okay, let me ask a question. One day you wake up as Dean of CEG. What one thing would you do immediately?
I don't know if I want to really do that. You know, having, having read about I don't know how much of it is good, right, wrong, truth. Those are all very too much for somebody like us. But yeah, the question is interesting. You can always imagination at work, right?
Yeah.
um, I mean, I think it's a great institution, continues to be a great institution, even though I keep hearing now that the shine is not as high as it used to be, not because CEG has lost its shine, because I think many other institutions have gained a lot more, looks like, relatively. So that's one thing. I don't know what's the reason. Worth understanding what's the reason and probably getting back to that the summit, the peak, the institution. I think it deserves it, and we all deserve it as alumni. We should do that. Number one. Number two is clearly the industry. I think interaction, the industry academia relationship. I'm sure now, like what I heard from Vish just now, I mean, there's such a powerful network, such a powerful alumni group that the institution has. Plenty of things could be created, and the industry academia interaction relationship, a structured way of leveraging this network for for the betterment of the students and alumni is something which is worth focusing. Because academics will anyway happen. I mean, they have the students coming into the institutions are the best students. The faculty have always been very good faculty. That will go without saying. But the area which needs sprucing up is clearly this. The industry face, the other side, other face of it. These are the two things I can think of. I
Yeah.
wish and hope I don't get that opportunity.
No, we lot of what you're saying we do have. No, we do have things for industry academic. There's actually a center dedicated for that, Center for University Industry Collaboration. There is also a lot of things, but all those exist. To what extent they're actually effective is a different question altogether. And also, CEG by itself, it's unfortunately doesn't have any particular legal standing, as I'm told. It's all under Anna University, so you don't see very many people even putting CEG in their name. They're putting Anna University in their name. I advise all our alumni who went through CEG to please put CEG in their LinkedIn profile, in their Facebook
You
profile.
told me and I've done that. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. So I advise people to do it because we want to show that we are from CEG, and people have done it. For a longest time, about 8 9 years ago, LinkedIn did not even have CEG as an option to choose.
No.
We found out there was an employee of ours working as a director in LinkedIn. I reached out to him and he made the change in within few minutes. And since then, we are able to do a select download from the scroll down to CEG. So I would say whoever is still in the call, please make sure your LinkedIn and Facebook profiles show it as CEG and not as Anna University, please. So that's all we had in the questions, Guru. It's a very interesting session. Went a little bit longer than planned, but that's not unusual. When you have good engagement, we would like to continue that. So the whole session, including the Q&A, is recorded. It will be there in the public YouTube channel shortly.
Sure.
You can watch for that, and we'll all look forward to the next session sometime in November. I have done a few shortlists for next month, but I haven't finalized any yet. If any of you have any recommendations of CEG alumni that from your own batch or other batches that you think would be a good person to have in the show, then please do let me know. As I said, over the last 16 months, I have been able to collect close to 500 names of CEGNs. So I have a lot of people in the list to schedule, but I would still want to add to the list to see who it is. What might be interesting is someone who's doing something very different and unique. We have a lot of technologists, a lot of academicians, a lot of entrepreneurs, but I'm looking for someone who has done excelled in spaces beyond all this. One particular person I'm looking at inviting, I haven't got a confirmation yet, is Alex, the stand-up comedian. He's, by the way, a CG alumni. And so I reached out to him to see if he can be part of my guest for one of the sessions so he can hear from someone who's doing something completely different from engineering. But like that, if you guys know of anyone, whether in
There must be some
technology,
bureaucrats, IAS, IFS, IPS.
oh, yes, we have a lot of IAS officers. We definitely have a lot of IAS officers and
That would
IPS
also be
officers.
interesting. That would also be very interesting to see.
Yeah,
How they.
we also, by the way, I don't know if you know, there is the deputy speaker, the former deputy speaker of the New Jersey Assembly.
Hmm.
Upendra Chivikula is a CEG alumni, actually. He was a deputy speaker of New Jersey State Assembly. So we do have people in politics as well. We have people in cinema, arts, sports, etc. All that. But anyway, if you guys know of any other names that you think can be a good sort, please do refer them to me. And also, please spread the word about the CEG Level Connect program to others who may not be watching, your batchmates, etc. And finally, any feedback you can give in terms of how to make this program better and bigger. We are obviously improving on a monthly basis, but at the end of the day, I want this to be valuable to the intended audience, which is alumni and students. And while I may and we may have some ideas of what to do, but I would rather listen to people who are actually watching the program to tell me what things that we should try and do. One recommendation that came last session was that let's do a brick and mortar live program in the college once, and that's something I'm looking at doing also to do that. But we need that. And the last point is on back to the point on Gindi Alumni Angels. We are targeting announcing the event sometime in the middle of November, probably around November 15th. And maybe I will do a live session of the CEGC level and also announce the Gindi Angels at the same time in the campus. All that has to be worked out with the administration, getting space, time, etc. All that. But look forward to those things. Again, thanks, Guru, for your time. It was quite interesting and exciting. A lot of good questions, and hope you continue to support the program and support the college as well. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for all of you for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you.